सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ओम शांति शांति शांति। हरि ओम तत्सत। Last Sunday we dealt with the need for an incarnation to come and set right the moral values of the people. Shankara in his introduction had told us, when dharma declines, adharma becomes dominant. We need an adjustment. Who can do this adjustment? I said last Sunday, no priest, no scholar, none of these can do this work, nor the political state. It is only from a profound spiritual personality that this ethical, moral and spiritual adjustment can come in society. So according to the Sanatana Dharma tradition in India, whenever such a need arises, a great spiritual teacher comes. We may call him an incarnation of God. We may call him a great spiritual teacher or divine personality. But the truth is, he is an extraordinary person, not like an ordinary person. He changes the values of society, and his influence continues for centuries together. India calls such people as avatara, incarnation of the divine. Shankara says here, when such a situation took place, in order to stabilize society, in order to restore the importance of moral values and in society, sa adikarta narayanakhyo Vishnuhu, that same divine personality, Narayana, who projected this universe, Adikarta Vishnuhu, he came down as Krishna in an incarnation. Brahmano Brahmanatvasya Rakshanartham Devakyam Vasudevad Amshena Krishna Kila Sambabhuva. He became incarnate as Krishna, the son of Devaki and Vasudeva. What is the purpose? That purpose is specially mentioned here in a great word. That word is Brahmanatva, Brahmana-ness. Man's evolution reaches its highest level when man becomes a Brahmana. The word Brahmana has got a very bad odor today in the context of our caste system, caste exclusiveness. But this is a later aberration and we are trying to get rid of it today. But in Indian sociology, there is a beautiful idea that man's evolution in the social context is to become a Brahmana. What is the Brahmana? Not from the point of view of caste, not point of view of by birth, but by actual spiritual development and realization. The first time we hear the word Brahmana in a definitive form is in the Upanishads, where it is mentioned, Etadvai Etadaksharam Gargi Viditva Asmat Lovakat Praiti Sab Brahmanaha. O Gargi, Yajnavalkya is telling in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, he who departs from this world after realizing this Brahman, the infinite reality, he is the Brahmana. All the rest are Kripanas. The opposite of Brahmana is a Kripana. small-minded. When you realize Brahman, your heart and mind expand. They become universal. That is the Brahmana originally presented in our Vedantic literature. In the Gita also, the same idea is upheld. By your character, by your conduct, you become a Brahmana, not by birth. This idea is expressed again and again in the Mahabharata as well as Ramayana. Later on, birth became the criterion, and that developed into what you call the present-day caste system with exclusive privileges, etc. But in its original understanding, it is human evolution rising to the highest level of spiritual development, where your own separate individuality vanishes, you feel one with all, you become the servant of all, you love all. That is the concept of the Brahmana in Indian sociology. Modern sociology doesn't give us any idea as to the direction of human development, direction of human evolution. We get a lot of statistics, we get a lot of social facts and formulae, but what exactly is the direction of human development and evolution? That is not given. That is applied in Vedantic sociology. The Brahmana is the ideal of human evolution. Here in this particular context, Shankaracharya refers to it in the abstract noun, Brahmanatva, that Brahminness, a quality which everybody can achieve. Everybody has the spiritual reality hidden within oneself. By manifesting it, we become the Brahmana. So, from every level of society, men and women must be urged to move in that direction, become a Brahmana. If there is a Brahmana in society, you don't need laws and regulations, not even the police or any such thing. He knows how to govern himself. This kind of ideal was placed before humanity in the older books of our literature. Shankara refers to this, that an incarnation comes to give a direction to the social process. That direction is towards becoming a Brahmana, a man of God, a man who loves all. It has nothing to do with particular birth or particular social stratification. This we forgot. Now we have to remind ourselves of this. Because of this, Brahmana can be found all over the world. It's not something, a phenomenon in India. Great people who love others, who live for others, they are the Brahmanas. They are found all over the world. Even in India we had a Mahatma Gandhi. He was not a Brahmana in birth, he was a Vaishya. But he became Brahmana by his own effort, and the whole country respected him for his spiritual attainment. So this idea of Brahmanatva, in order to establish the predominance of Brahmanatva in society, God incarnates himself. Once you give a direction to social energies, a direction which is ethical, moral and spiritual, there will be automatic stabilization of the social system. So, incarnation comes to show that ideal and to stimulate people to go in that direction. So, the statement here, Brahmanatva, Bhaumasya Brahmano, Brahmanatvasya Rakshanartham, Bhaumasya Brahma, the Brahman of the earth, that is the Vedas, that tremendous repository of tremendous knowledge and wisdom, that has to be protected, the very source of Sanatana Dharma, eternal spirituality. Along with it, Brahmanatva, Brahminness, Brahmananess, that high quality of human life. In order to establish these two, God incarnated himself as Krishna, son of Devaki and Vasudeva. Why? Brahmanatvasya hi rakshanena yakshitasyat Vaidigo dharmaha tad adhinatvat varnashrama bhedanam. All the social classifications in any society, they all will become orderly positive, creative. Once a direction is given, that is the direction. Don't be stagnant. Don't be static in your particular situation. Move on, move on. There is a great ideal to be achieved. That ideal is Brahmanatva. Be a Brahmana. You say that society is the best, which is ruled least by any government, because people are self-disciplined, they are pure, they have overcome selfishness and violence. So in this way, social evolution must be in that direction, and at the end of it you will find this Brahmana, man becoming a Brahmana. So all that is priestly about the Brahmana is eliminated. What impinges upon our mind today is the concept of Brahmana as a priest. This has nothing to do with the priestly idea. Brahmanatva ideal has been upheld by great teachers from ancient times to modern times. Swami Vivekananda has said Brahmanatva is the ideal of humanity in India. In his famous Madras lecture, he said, society as an ideal, that is the Brahmana. Everyone must evolve towards that Brahmana ideal. This is not the caste Brahmana, but the spiritual Brahmana. Anyone can become such a Brahmana. That is the type of thinking that was overlaid by the caste idea of Brahmana with all its exploitations and other things, from which we are trying to rescue our own society today. In this connection, it will be very interesting to know that a man like Buddha, who is presented as heterodox, as criticizing Brahminism, etc., and all sorts of rituals and ceremonies, that great Buddha himself has spoken highly about this Brahmanatva ideal presented by the Vedic tradition. There is one chapter entirely devoted to this subject in that great Buddhistic book known as Dharmapada. Something like the Gita in Hindu religion is Dharmapada in Buddhistic religion. Buddha speaks with high respect to the Brahmana. In fact, in his time, there were really great Brahmanas, along with many other Brahmanas who were priestly and exploiting people. Always there will be such kind of diversity. But there was also the Shramanas, the free spirits who became monks and lived in forests and dedicated themselves to the divine. So two types of people, Brahmana and Shramana. Shramana means a monk, a free monk. Now, Shramana is a monastic type. Brahmana is a householder. Even as a householder, the Brahmana was given very high status because of his purity and unselfish behavior. So, Buddha equates both of them. Respect the Brahmana and the Shramana. This is the advice Buddha gives to all his disciples. And here, in this Dharmapada, you have a whole chapter known as Brahmana Varga, a chapter devoted to Brahmana, that idea of the Brahmana. I read a few sample verses from this chapter of Brahmana Varga. He says, him I call a Brahmana, for whom there is neither this shore nor that shore, nor both, who is free from fear and free from shackles. That is verse 3 in the chapter. Yassa param aparam va, paraparam na vijjati. This is the Pali version. Vittadaram vinasatam tam aham brahmi brahmanam. Tam aham brahmi brahmanam. Him I call a Brahmana. That is the translation. Similarly, the sun shines by day. The moon lights up the night. The warrior shines in his armor. The Brahmana shines in his meditation. But the awakened one shines all day and night by his radiance of spirit, namely the Buddha, is far above all these other types of people. Then, because he has put aside evil, he is called a Brahmana. Because he lives in serenity, he is called a Shramana. Because he puts away his impurities, he is called a Pabhajita, one who has renounced home and gone into homelessness. Similarly, the beautiful idea, him I call a Brahmana who does not hurt anybody by speech or mind, who is controlled in these three things, body, speech and mind. Similarly, not by the matted hair, nor by lineage, by mere birth, not by caste, does one become a Brahmana. He is a Brahmana in whom there are truth and righteousness. He is blessed indeed. And then, what is the use of matted hair, O fool? What of the raiment of goatskins? Thine inward nature is full of wickedness, the outside thou makest clean. Almost similar to what Jesus said in the New Testament. Then, I do not call him a Brahmana because of his origin or of his mother. If he be with good, he is called a Bhovadi. Bhovadi. Him I call a Brahmana who is free from goods and free from attachment. Finally, him I call a Brahmana who has cut the strap and the thong and the chain with its appurtenances, who has brushed the bar and is awakened. Now these verses contain that wonderful sociological concept in India that human society has to move in a particular direction. Then only society remains creative. Otherwise, stagnation sets in. What is the direction of my movement? I can be entirely sensual, lost in the sensual life of day-to-day existence. That will be stagnation. I must pass through this and go to something higher. There's always something higher. And the highest is to realize the infinite hidden in the heart of all. So in this way, Brahmanatva ideal provides society a direction of evolution. Evolution needs a direction. A movement without a direction is a movement in circles. Today's society is more or less like this. There is no direction at all. Direction finding is very important. In the early days, people found their way looking at the stars. Even a ship could go find its way looking at the stars. Now we have direction finding instruments in our ships, in our aeroplanes, etc. But direction finding is essential for every movement. And in society, there is no direction today. That's why there is so much of stagnation. Generally, civilizations stagnate at the organic level and they die away. This has happened again and again in history. In fact, even modern civilization, according to some writers, already is facing that kind of stagnation and decay. The first book that was written on the subject was after the First World War by that famous book. It's called The Decline of the West. It's a very important book at that time. We have declined. Somebody wrote a reply to it in defense of the West. All this happened in the interwar years. There was a sense of defeatism at that time. Though men like Swami Vivekananda had said that the West is very strong, very young, it has got great things to achieve in the future. But a feeling came, are we on the decline? Even in America, there are thinkers who refer to that Western civilization on the decline. But today, there is every possibility to avert the decay and death of any culture, because there is possibility for cross-fertilization of cultures, which was not so easily available in olden times. Many old cultures died away. They played a great part and died away because of that kind of a sensual expression of the whole civilization. When we study Gibbon's book of the Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire, you will find this condition. Such a mighty empire declined, decayed, and finally died away. Why should it do so? In today's civilization, there is every possibility to avoid a final destruction of any culture or civilization because of the possibility of communication between cultures so that what is lacking in one can be supplied by the other. This truth is specially demonstrated in the history of modern India. In the 18th century, India had become decayed. All its energy had disappeared. Centuries of political subjection. But it did not die. It got a new life by contact with the dynamic culture of the modern West. That gave a new renaissance to the Indian culture. And what you find in India today is that new India, which has been very much helped and energized by its contact with the ancient Greek culture coming through modern Western culture. Swami Vivekananda especially referred to this debt that modern India owes to the modern West. Similarly, if the West is in difficulty in culture, there is India, there is China. This can interact. So today we are living at a time when all cultures can flourish, and finally we can create a human culture by interaction between all the cultures. Swami Vivekananda placed before India this great ideal that this modern India must be a beautiful blending of our own ancient cultural traditions and modern Western culture. That work has to be done. India becoming neither Eastern nor Western, but just human. A tremendous human culture must develop in India. Swamiji has said it in his lectures in India. It is in this context, how do we achieve it? Who is to initiate this process? He presented Sri Ramakrishna as that wonderful spiritual energy which will help to bring about this harmony between East and West in India as well as in the rest of the world. That is how we look upon an incarnation. He comes to transform the world. He doesn't come merely to please a few devotees, a few spiritual seekers. For that there are so many saints. So that an incarnation is not just a mere saint. An incarnation can produce many saints. Ramakrishna compares a saint to a small boat carrying one or two people. And he compares an incarnation to a big ship can carry hundreds of people. So the idea of the incarnation came in India only because we found that he is a center of tremendous world-moving energy. By his touch, millions of people become changed. And when he is alive, very few people know him. When he passes away physically, people begin to know him more and more. His energy spreads everywhere. This capacity to defeat the process of time is what makes a great spiritual teacher becoming called an avatara or an incarnation. This is what happened in India several times in the past ages. Whenever there has been a decline, a great teacher came and a new adjustment took place. And in this modern period, the same situation has come, not only with respect to India, but with respect to the whole modern age. We are seeing a tremendous change in the modern period, decline of the older traditions, the new development of science and technology, a very worldly outlook and attitude, the dawn of materialism and its dominance in the human mind. In all these conditions, there is a great need for a readjustment. And Swami Vivekananda presented Sri Ramakrishna as that great force that came in the modern period to effect this great adjustment both in East and West. Though born in India, he is not meant for India, he is meant for the whole world. And today's world is so small, communications are so easy, so that what is a blessing in one place can also go to other places as a blessing. So when he was in America, he preached only India's spiritual heritage, philosophical heritage, the great Vedanta. But he sometimes used to refer to his master as an example of this great Vedanta, that universal vision of Vedanta. So some of his close friends asked him, "Tell us something about your master." He avoided it, but ultimately in 1896 he spoke in England and in New York on the subject of my master. In that lecture, in the very opening paras, you find this presentation, what this great teacher is going to do to the whole world today, what the world can expect from his advent in this modern period. It is a masterly lecture. When I was a young student, I enjoyed this lecture, read it several times. It's beautiful English, beautiful presentation of ideas, and presentation of the character and message of this great teacher, Sri Ramakrishna. The lecture begins in this way. Whenever virtue subsides and vice prevails, I come down to help mankind, declares Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. Whenever this world of ours, on account of growth, on account of added circumstances, requires a new adjustment, a wave of power comes. And as man is acting on two planes, the spiritual and the material, waves of adjustment come on both planes. On the one side of the adjustment on the material plane, Europe has mainly been the basis during modern times. And of the adjustment on the other, the spiritual plane, Asia has been the basis throughout the history of the world. Today, man requires one more adjustment on the spiritual plane. Today, when material ideas are at the height of their glory and power, today when man is likely to forget his divine nature through his growing dependence on matter and is likely to be reduced to a mere money-making machine, an adjustment is necessary. The voice has spoken, and the power is coming to drive away the clouds of gathering materialism. The power has been set in motion, which at no distant date will bring unto mankind once more the memory of his real nature. And again, the place from which this power will start will be Asia. And so, he says finally, I am going to present before you the life of one man who has put in motion such a wave in India. That is Sri Ramakrishna. This is a presentation made in 1896 in New York and in England. Today we see the ideas and inspiration of Sri Ramakrishna going around the world and spreading all over India to bring harmony, to deepen human life. Now, how shall we look upon Sri Ramakrishna? A great spiritual force, certainly. You need not call him an avatar or incarnation, these are mere words. But he creates history. In this matter, we shall remember what Karl Marx said. Philosophers have only interpreted the world, but the real task is to change it. That is exactly what the Avatara does. It changes the ratio of forces in society. A criminal society can become crime-free society by the spiritual stimulus given by a great divine personality. Where there is strife, where there is intolerance, harmony comes. Sri Ramakrishna is to bring about this tremendous transformation in society in all parts of the world. That is the purpose of a divine incarnation. And so, when this Shankara's commentary says, long ago, such an event occurred in India. When Krishna appeared on the scene, he was truly a universal personality. His message has relevance for us even today in all parts of the world. That's why his book, the Gita, is being studied in all parts of the world, where he said, therefore, that in order to establish this truth for the Vedic religion, so broad, so universal, the mother of religions, which accepts all religions, which sustains every other religion, that's the Vedic religion. That has to be protected. This broad, universal approach to religion as expounded in the Vedas The idea of unity of all knowledge, secular and sacred, also expounded in the Vedas in order to protect this broad, universal approach to human life and problems as contained in the Vedas. An incarnation appears, and Krishna appeared for that purpose and also for establishing that social direction, the Brahmana type. Everyone must go in that direction. We are confronted by three forces: tamas, rajas and sattva. Tamas and rajas make us worldly, make us enter into quarreling, fighting, exploitation, and also violence and war. Sattva comes, everything changes, man becomes a center of peace, center of harmony. He projects that harmony outside. So evolution is towards sattva. More and more men and women with the sattva element must come in. And the one who has the fullest element of sattva, he is known as a Brahmana. He beckons us, every one of us, to go in his direction. This is your progress. This is human evolution. So he has said here, Brahmanatvasahi rakshanasya Vaidiko dharmaha tad adhinatvat varnashrama bhedana. If this Brahmana ideal is properly projected and protected, the whole society becomes stable. All the various components of society will know how to be harmonious and move in that direction. It is this work, this triggering of the spiritual impulse towards sattva that an incarnation projects into the world, so that dharma tad adhinatvat varnashrama bhedana, all of them depend upon giving a direction to social energies, social forces. Now Shankara begins to say, this great divine personality, what purpose had he to come in this world? Only to do good to humanity. That is expressed in the statement, Sacha Bhagavan, Jnana Aishwarya, Shakti, Bala, Virya, Tejobhi, Sada Sampannaha, Trigunatmikam, Vaishnavim, Swam Mayam, Mula Prakritim, Vashikritya, Ajo, Avyayo, Bhutanam Ishwaro, Nitya Shuddha Buddha Mukta Swabhavo api, San Samaya, Dehavaniva, Jata Evacha, Lokanugraham Kurvan, Drishyate. That divine personality, he has no objective to gain for himself. He is ever full. But because of the maintenance of the world, he is very much concerned. Out of pure compassion, he takes recourse to his own Maya power. With that, that infinite one becomes a finite human individual, born with a body, Maya, through Maya Shakti, through the Prakriti or nature. He takes away the energy of nature, limits himself to a finite form, he says. Then he is the Ishvara, the master of the world. But what does it matter? He has reduced himself to a tiny human form. Outwardly, so tiny. Inwardly, an infinite energy is functioning within that individual. That's the nature of these divine personalities. He is Nitya Shuddha Buddha Mukta Swabhava. It's a beautiful Vedantic expression. Every human soul is described in this way. Nitya Shuddha, eternally pure. Nitya Buddha, eternally awakened. Nitya Mukta, eternally free. Every human soul is this nature. But we are caught up in Maya, and so we feel small, we feel petty, we feel bound. In order to give us the true knowledge, teacher comes. That teacher is fully aware of his own divine nature. So, Bhutanam Samaya Dehavaniha, he takes up a body and plays his part in this world. We have a beautiful word, Leela. Life of Krishna is a Leela. Buddha, Jesus, these are all Leela. It's a play. He has played this part to do this great work in this world. So, Dehavaniva Jataivacha Lokanugraham Kurvan Rishyate. We see him doing blessing to humanity. Jesus Christ had nothing to gain for himself. He lived only for the good of man. Blessed everyone. That's the nature of an incarnation. Buddha, purely out of compassion, goes out and blesses millions of people, first in India, later on almost the whole of Asia. This is how great teachers function. And so, this idea of an incarnation is whether you have it in a doctrinal form, but a fact is there. There is a person whom you cannot classify as an ordinary type of hero, ordinary type of saint. He has tremendous energy within himself to attract humanity, to attract people to himself, and through that attraction, he transforms their personality as well. Sinners become saints by the touch of a great incarnation. See the touch of a Buddha or a Jesus. How many scholars, how many artists have been inspired by these two personalities? They themselves were not scholarly, they themselves were not artists, but scholars, artists, authors, they all become inspired to express their artistic genius in various works of art, of books, etc., etc. That is where you see the enormous energy of a spiritual nature expressing through these great personalities. Saprayojana bhave api, even though he has no purpose of his own to serve, bhutana jigritshaya, in order to bless humanity, Vaidikam dharmadvayam arjunaya, shoka moha mahodato nimagnaya upadidesha. That Krishna became an incarnate reality in this world and gave to Arjuna, who was sunk in sorrow and delusion, shoka and moha, this profound Vedic message, this profound Sanatana Dharma. He just gave. He says, Dharmadvayam Arjunaya, shoka moha modato nimagnaya upadidesha. That's what he did in the Gita, which we are going to study hereafter. It is Krishna's tremendous contribution to all humanity. What was his intention? Giving to Arjuna a teaching. How is he going to save the world? It's a very legitimate question. That is something unique, and it is good for us to know that uniqueness. Normally, if I whisper something to somebody, that whisper dies along with me, along with him. But when these great teachers whisper something to somebody's ear, that whisper doesn't die. It ignites the whole world in course of time. That is the power of the word. The power of the word is not in the word, but in the person behind the word, in the realization of the person behind the word. So, the deeper a person, the more spiritual a person, the more power his words have. An ordinary man speaks an ordinary word, there is no power. But a Jesus or a Buddha or a Ramakrishna, speaking a few words, they convey a profound message not only to the listener, but to later generations as well. This is the power of the word of a great incarnation. There is some tremendous energy within. We call it the energy of spirituality that has the power to attract people and to transform them. When Jesus goes walking about the sea, the lake, Galilee, he finds Peter casting his net to the sea. He looks at him. Come and follow me. I shall make you fishers of men. Simply a few words, and you find Peter throwing away his net, following Jesus. What is the power of that word? Come and follow me. You can say, I can say, millions of people can say, but there is no power in it. The power of a spiritual teacher is tremendous. This has happened in many, many cases. So he says, Suprayojana abhave api bhutana jigritshaya Vaidikam dharmadvayam arjunaya upadidesha. He imparted this Vedic dharmadvayam, the twofold Vedic dharma, pravritti, nivritti, leading to worldly welfare and spiritual freedom. That's what we have studied earlier. This dharmadvayam, this double type of dharma or philosophy, he imparted to Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. What was the intention? Gunadhigairhi grihitha anushtiyamanascha dharma prachayam gamishyati iti. It's a very beautiful expression. It answers the question, how does the message of a spiritual teacher spread in society. They don't need newspapers and modern media of communication. They may use them, but the essential media are the character, the contact, the behavior of the instruments of that communication. So let us study Gita. Krishna spoke to Arjuna, and this commentary will tell you Vyasa took that message, put it into 700 verses and made it the Gita. And that Gita is now inspiring millions of people. What Krishna whispered to Arjuna alone on the battlefield is now listened to by millions of people. Similarly, Buddha went to Benares after his enlightenment at Gaya, Buddha Gaya. He had only 5 disciples there. I am sure in those days we had no newspaper correspondence or radio, television, nothing. Only 5 people. They listened to it and they were inspired. And within the next 600, 700 years, it has covered practically the whole of Asia. What is the power of the word? That is the power that is transmitted to certain people. Those certain people who will transmit it to others must possess certain qualities. That is what is explained by this phrase, Guna adhikairihi grihitaha anushtiyamanascha dharma prachayangamishyati. If this teaching is given to men and women of more than ordinary virtue, Guna adhika. Ordinary virtue people have. You pay your taxes, you are kind, you look after your parents. These are all called ordinary virtues of society. That's not enough. Something more is needed. A more dynamic virtue is needed. So it's called Guna Atigairhi. When such people, Grihitaha, they understand, they receive this teaching, then they practice it, Anushtiyamanascha, then they become dynamic instruments of social change. Dharma Prachayangamishyati. From them it spreads in society, from one person, one group, another. And you can see, though the teacher has disappeared from the world physically speaking, his teaching continues to inspire millions of people thereafter, and this goes on for hundreds of years. That is the language used here. Guna adhikairihi grihitaha anushtiyamanascha dharma prachayangamishyati. What was the blessing for a few becomes a blessing for the many. And Buddha used this very expression. In Sanskrit, it is a beautiful expression. He spoke to 5 people. Within a few days, 5 became 60. And he sent all the 60, go and preach this great teaching for the blessing of all. What is the nature of that exhortation? Bahujana hitaya, bahujana sukhaya. Bahujana means the infinite mass of people. It's called bahujana. Not half a dozen people or a group. The vast mass of humanity is called bahujana. For their hita, for their welfare, for their sukha, for their happiness. My teaching is for bahujana hita, bahujana sukha. That is really the motivation of all these divine personalities of Buddha, Jesus, and today in Sri Ramakrishna. Bahujana hitaya, bahujana sukhaya. It takes time and it slowly spreads. Nothing can stop it. That is the idea. Though after some centuries and centuries, it becomes diluted. It becomes weakened as it passes through human minds and hearts. Then again, another crisis will come. Then again, another teacher will come. That's why Krishna will tell in the Gita, in the 4th chapter, I come again and again. These adjustments are needed again and again. Therefore, it's not just one man coming once for all. In India, we don't accept that idea. The divine manifestation comes again and again, and the people recognize that divine manifestation, give them honor and respect, don't crucify them, don't destroy them. That is India's tradition. Whenever a new spiritual center comes, we respect that spiritual center, we follow that center. You can see it happening in the modern period. When Swami Vivekananda came, he criticized the Hindu practices and the wrong understanding of religion on the part of the Hindus more strongly than anybody else. And yet he was honored, he was respected, he was welcomed. And today he is considered to be a great spiritual leader of modern India. That is the nature of the Indian tradition. There is not that kind of narrowness, that fanaticism, that finished idea. Everything is finished and final, nothing new. We do need truth to be given to us in new language, in new forms, because the old things do not become current coin in a later period. Certain words, certain concepts have to change. Ramakrishna said in a beautiful sentence, the Mughal coins have no currency under the East India Company's rule. There is no currency value. You need a new coin to be minted, East India Company. Today's Republic of India, you have to mint it in that Republican, what you call state mint. So then only it becomes current coin. So old ideas need change, reformulation. Because India believed in this, there is a resilience in the Indian cultural tradition, and also a tremendous continuity, 5,000 years of continuity, so that every now and then, when things sag, morals sag, somebody comes and strengthens it, a new formulation is given. We call it Yuga Dharma, Dharma for this particular age. For that country, there is one Dharma. Another country, one Dharma. Similarly, one age, one Dharma. This is not universal. This is for a particular period. Then it will be reformulated later on. That's why incarnations come again and again. We need it because of the human weakness. Then he says here, Gunadhikarihi grihitaha anushtiyamanascha dharma prachayam gamishyati. That is how dharma spreads in society. There is a sentence in Jesus where a similar idea is expressed. Unless your righteousness exceeds the righteousness of the scribes and the Pharisees, ye shall in no wise enter in the kingdom of God. Your righteousness must exceed the righteousness of the scribes and Pharisees. Similarly, guna adhikairhi, little extra virtue, strength, dynamic virtue must come to you. Then you become an instrument for conveying this message to the rest of the people. Another example also Jesus given, a little leaven leavens the whole bread. A woman brought wheat powder from the market, mixed it with water, and hid a little leaven in it. And next morning he found the whole bread has been leavened. So a little leaven leavens the whole bread. A great spiritual message goes in a little way, eventually leavens the whole of society. That's the idea Shankara expresses in this beautiful sentence or phrase, Guna adhikairhi grihitaha anushtiyamanascha dharma prachayam gamishyati iti. Such a Bhagavan, he says, that dharma which was given by Krishna to Arjuna, twofold dharma, pravritti dharma, nivritti dharma.